airports, world-class residential and commercial accommodation, security, infrastructure, regulatory and judicial frameworks, state-of-the-art transportation, environment, labor, entertainment, and the like, far different to and from anything we have ever known or experienced to date. Now, while Rome wasn't built in a day, and the Trinidad and Tobago IFC cannot possibly become a reality overnight, our country has a head start as we have developed into what we now call ourselves the financial hub of the Caribbean. But while we pride ourselves on this achievement, it is merely a small start. Nevertheless, and no matter the direction to be taken, an international financial center in Trinidad and Tobago is dynamically visionary and futuristic thinking, but it will require a whole new mindset. For in said context, who and what we are today compares little with who and what we need to be tomorrow. Interestingly enough, one of the hot financial topics of the moment relates to the value of the TT dollar in context of its alignment to the consistently devaluing US dollar. I need you to know that the Chamber's Finance Committee is actively studying and assessing this situation as we speak. On information and communications technology, the Chamber is indeed very encouraged by government's ICT enabling program entitled Fast Forward, which is aggressive and should yield very positive options and opportunities for the private sector within the next 2 years, in effect taking us from what is perceived to be a position of catching up with our neighbors to one of leadership. And when viewed in context of the most recent wave of hugely expanded broadband availability, together with UTT's groundbreaking R&D and ICT programs, as well as the new Intech Park and main UTT campus now under construction at Tamana, Trinidad and Tobago in ICT appears to be well on its way. To demonstrate its own commitment to the ICT sector, the Chamber has recently formed its own ICT committee called EBITS. The objective of the committee is to drive the ICT sector in a mutually beneficial direction and to ensure that the private sector plays a pivotal role in making it hugely successful. To this end, the Chamber has embarked upon a program of tapping into the highly educated, globally experienced ICT brain power of Trinidad and Tobago nationals living and working throughout the diaspora, a huge intellectual resource with immeasurable possibilities. We've already met with a few of them, and trust me, a conversation with each and every one of these guys, these dynamic young powerhouses, is nothing short of blow mind. Blow mind. The Chamber is also actively working on leading a partnership with the Ministry of Trade and Industry and the world-class, globally respected Economist Business magazine to host a major annual or signature conference commencing in 2008 to focus on and so drive the diversification process. Participants will comprise top leaders of all sectors of the economy, together with relevant international speakers who will present the diversification experiences of several other countries and economies similar to ours. The intent is to annually benchmark our progress, and we will keep you apprised as we proceed. In line with this strategy of proactively developing initiatives for the benefit of business and of the country, the Chamber has now completed an outline plan for the institution of a National Productivity Center. The center, as proposed, is to be a tripartite venture between the private sector, government, and labor. It is intended to provide international benchmarks, standards, resources, and facilities to assist in our quest to raise levels of productivity throughout the workforce. This to enhance our competitiveness in the global marketplace on a scientifically structured basis, so as to ensure that instead of merely talking the talk about productivity, along with every wage increase we hear about, it will now assist with the necessary work. The proposed model is drawn from the experiences and programs of countries such as Singapore, Malaysia, Ireland, and Mauritius. Additionally, the Chamber has embarked upon a special project to lobby for and so drive the comprehensive resourcing and technological upgrading of customs and excise, and the implementation of the Asecuda Plus system. Included in this is a whole new attitude towards productivity and efficiency at both customs and excise and the Port of Spain. Despite major improvements brought about by the private management of the port, chronic inefficiencies remain and must be resolved, either by way of the incorporation of new technologies, such as obtained in Singapore, and/or a whole new out-of-the-box type thinking. If this country intends to become world-class, so too then must customs and excise and the Port of Port of Spain. Internally, your chamber has embarked upon a program of reinvention and enhanced revenue generation to ultimately take us too into the world-class status. We are currently in the process of assessing our floor areas and existing configuration in order to maximize the available space by converting it into a world-class conference facility with all appropriate technologies to suit. Additionally, all chamber committees are being upgraded, if not completely reformed, to reflect the new thinking as well as to ensure appropriate progress in contributions and decision-making. The Chamber is also embarking upon a whole new communications program, branching out into the broadcast media with the development of our very own hour-long monthly television roundtable forum. We are also negotiating the production of a weekly radio program. You will have noted the significant improvement in look, size, and content of the Chamber's quarterly magazine, Contact. And through negotiation and added value, Contact has now become a source of revenue for the Chamber as well. We continue, of course, with our newspapers, hosting of articles, seminars, participation in fora, presentations, meetings, speeches, and the like. Which perhaps most appropriately leads me back to our membership, and indeed to the entire private sector itself. For I believe that each and every one of us has a huge responsibility to participate and therefore assume a greater role in the development of our economy and thereby our country. More so while this window of opportunity remains open, if not for ourselves, then for the generations to come. As such, we must collectively become the movers and shakers, strategic thinkers and planners, and above all, we must become the doers. We can no longer sit on the sidelines as individual entities doing our own thing, merely watching, waiting, and reacting. Those days are now over. We must now get involved and collectively partner with the government and all other stakeholders as proactive professionals with initiatives and solutions always in hand. At this crucial stage of development, I believe we would be remiss, if not downright irresponsible, to do otherwise. And so, ladies and gentlemen, may we all gathered here this evening be inspired by the example set by our Business Hall of Fame inductees. They are indeed role models for us all to honor, be proud of, admire, and to emulate. For they, in their respective times of duty, were not only totally committed to and involved in the development of business in Trinidad and Tobago, but also, and as importantly, in the development of this, our beloved land. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Collier. This evening, we celebrate the outstanding achievements of three titans of industry whose business acumen and hard work have put Trinidad and Tobago on the world stage. They have influenced and shaped the landscape and psyche of the country over the last 100 years, and this evening, we honor these men. Trinidad and Tobago Chamber of Industry and Commerce third annual Business Hall of Fame 2007 induction ceremony welcomes these inductees: Sir George F. Huggins, Mr. J.B. Fernandez, Mr. Tommy Gatcliffe. Their biographies will be read by past presidents, and when I say biographies, obviously this is very condensed because their lives are vast. So they will be read by past presidents of the Chamber, and David Burrow will honor them in song. We start with a giant born in the 19th century whose career covered 2 world wars. Ladies and gentlemen, may I invite Mr. Ian Welsh, Managing Director of PCS Nitrogen Trinidad Limited, and immediate past president of the Chamber, to pay tribute to our first inductee, Mr. Welsh.
In 1897, Trinidad was celebrating the Diamond Jubilee of the reign of Queen Victoria, in an age that was predominantly tranquil, yet industrially burgeoning. And participating in those celebrations was the young George Frederick Huggins, who just a year previously had opened a one-door provision business on the west side of Almond Walk, now known as Broadway. Sandwiched between two taller and larger establishments, it was hardly more than a narrow room fronting on the street that was shaded by 2 rows of spreaded almond trees. But to the young man who had only his strength and courage to assist him in his new venture, that drab little store was gilded by his implicit faith in the future. Born in the island of St. Vincent and originally destined for the church, his first job had been on one of the port estates there, and he learned early to love agriculture for its own sake. However, St. Vincent probably offered little or no opportunities for a very ambitious youth, and so he set out for Trinidad to win fame and fortune. His first job in the island was a minor clerical at the Royal Gold. Before 6 months had passed, Huggins knew that a life in the civil service was not for him, and he became an office boy at Branch and Company, provision merchants. The experience gained there led to the opening of his own small business. Although the first few months in his new venture could not have been easy ones, in less than a year, he found it necessary to move to larger premises at number 66 South Key. And in 1898, he was joined in partnership by his brother-in-law, Evan Parker Hutchinson. The store was opened at 6 a.m. and would often continue late into the afternoon without a break for lunch. At the turn of the century, the general economy of the island, save for the asphalt mine by the renowned Pitch Lake, was purely agricultural. By that time, cocoa, not sugar, had come to reign supreme. By 1906, when the first motor cars were appearing on the streets of Port of Spain, George Frederick Huggins and Evan Parker Hutchinson had established their businesses on firm foundations. And trading in cocoa, copra, and sugar, they had started to acquire a direct interest in the land itself. The very first venture took the form of a lease on the thriving coconut groves of El Cocal on the East Coast, a property that they eventually bought outright. And when the firm of Burnley liquidated its holdings, Paradise and an adjoining estate in the Tacarigua district, they were purchased. In 1912, the firm of George F. Huggins and Company opened a branch office in San Fernando. And gradually, the business of the firm was diversified in keeping, as it were, with the general development of the island. 1914 marked the end of an era in Trinidad, one in which its economy had been tied directly to the land. Almost overnight, the strategic position of Port of Spain as a crossroad of world shipping routes became paramount, and the winning of oil from fields in the southern part of the island became of prime importance. The immense demands that World War I made on all resources throughout the Commonwealth inevitably affected the life in the island. Sugar prices rose. Food was at times more precious than gold. The volume of shipping passing through the Gulf of Paria increased tremendously. Many young Trinidadians left to fight with the Allies in Europe and the Middle East, while older men who remained behind worked night and day to keep the affairs of the island on an even keel, to send as much agricultural produce and oil abroad as was possible. George F. Huggins and Company made its presence felt throughout the society, engaging in stevedoring and representing great shipping interests, as well as being an importer and exporter of produce and other supplies vital to consumers in the colony and overseas. George Huggins himself led the way in raising merchants, contingents of young West Indians who were eager to fight in Europe. He made direct donations in cash towards the war effort, and he spent what time he could in England organizing, arranging, and encouraging the various contributions made by Trinidad and Tobago to the Great War. Those many voluntary services were rewarded by him receiving the Order of the British Empire, OBE. However, in spite of the pressures of these war years, time was still found to attend to affairs at home. On the 4th March 1917, 19 Port of Spain's leading citizens, among them George F. Huggins, gathered to discuss the plans for the founding of a newspaper. And 3 months later, the Trinidad Publishing Company was incorporated. Premises were leased at number 22 St. Vincent Street, and on Sunday, the 2nd of September 1917, the first issue of the Trinidad Guardian appeared. By the late 1920s, poor prices and the resultant dwindling of the cocoa crop caused Mr. Huggins to pioneer the citrus industry. And he became the first president of the fledgling Citrus Growers Association and one of its cornerstones. In 1937, in recognition of his many and varied services to the colony that included several years as a member of the Legislative Council, George F. Huggins was knighted by his sovereign, his name appearing in the coronation honors list, and he was cited as being an outstanding citizen and one of the foremost businessmen of the era. The outbreak of World War II was the prelude for George F. Huggins and Company of 6 years of unparalleled activity. There was the war effort not only of the Commonwealth, but of the Grand Alliance to be supported. Trinidad became a way station of paramount importance to the navies and the merchant shipping of the Allies. The firm was in a position to meet all the demands that were made of it and played its full part in the eventual all-out effort that resulted in total victory. Sir George F. Huggins himself, having financed a 4-engine bomber that was named after him. However, in 1941, he knew that a necessary trip to the United States for a major operation spelt his end. The fateful and not unexpected cable announcing his death arrived. Donald McBride, his close colleague, opened and read it. And after a long pause into which there must have flooded so many memories, he straightened himself up and simply said, we will continue. With his death in 1941, Trinidad lost one of its illustrious sons, a truly great entrepreneur of the colonial era, whose business interests covered a wide range of activities, many of which are now reflected in the vibrant Neal and Massey group of companies that acquired the assets of George F. Huggins and Company Limited in the decade of the 70s. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Blow, wind, blow, blow, wind, blow. Houdini de yo, Shante, Roma Corisho. Blow, wind, blow, everybody blow, wind, blow. Houdini de yo, Nuka Shante, Roma Corisho. Mama Mwe Shorty Morocco, this is what I want you to know. La Mwe Kashashe Pujo, Nuka Shante, Roma Corisho. Blow, wind, blow, blow, wind, blow. Houdini de yo, Shante, Roma Corisho. One more time. Blow, wind, blow, everybody blow, wind, blow. Houdini ke yo, Nuka Shante, Roma Corisho.